And now to end the show today, we're going to talk a little bit about March Madness. And, I said to begin the show, I said that it was really difficult for me to make a bracket this year. Extremely difficult. This is probably the most unsure I've ever been about a bracket since I've done these bracket challenges, all the way back in high school. So in like 6 or 7 years, this is the most unsure I've been about my bracket in a long time. It was very difficult for me to choose because not only have I not admittedly watched as much college basketball this season, I don't want to delegitimize my picks, but regardless, I haven't watched as much college basketball this season. Normally I watch a ton, but not only that, but with the health and safety protocols with NCAA, and especially with different conferences, different Power 5 conferences having different regulations and things and of that sort, it's been very inconsistent to tell where teams rank in terms of their power, in terms of their full ability. Sometimes they have games that would have been really important games have been postponed or canceled, and sometimes teams have played really good teams and have gotten blown out because they don't have all their personnel there. Very difficult for me to bring that into the equation when it comes to selecting a bracket this year, but I am going to let out my bracket anyway. Again, if you guys have filled out a bracket, feel free to bring it up on your mobile device or print it out or find some way to bring it to you. Let's compare and contrast. Let's see what we got. Let's see who we're taking. And we're just going to go straight into it with the Sweet 16. Actually, I'm going to make sure that I bring up the PDF file just so I can make sure I have everything correctly here. Let me load this up here. My Sweet 16: Gonzaga, Creighton, Kansas, Oregon, Florida State, Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Baylor, Arkansas, Illinois, Houston, Villanova, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. So again, Gonzaga, Creighton, Kansas, Oregon, Florida State, Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Baylor, Arkansas, Illinois, Houston, Villanova, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. A lot of people are probably saying, well, Rutgers, where's Rutgers in that? I think Rutgers can make a serious run as well. I just decided to leave them up this bracket. I put them being a little bit stronger in my backup bracket. I made like 4 or 5 brackets. It was really a tough decision this year, guys. It really was a tough decision to make. Just starting from the top with the Western bracket, Gonzaga, I have them beating Norfolk State. Norfolk State. They barely hung on to beat Appalachian State last night. I have them beating Oklahoma in the round of 32 and playing Creighton. Some people are going to say, well, why do you have Creighton there? Creighton is a lot better than what Georgetown made them look like when they were blown out by Georgetown in the Big East final. Creighton is a lot better of a basketball team than many people will give them credit for. I think they're going to cruise. They're going to come back hard against USSB, and they are going to beat Ohio, which Ohio is a pick that a lot of people have to upset Virginia, and I am really big on the idea that Virginia is not as good of a basketball team as many people think, but also they haven't been practicing. They've been really inconsistent towards the latter half of the season, so I think Ohio has a really good chance to upset Virginia. That's a 13-4 upset. But they will lose to Creighton in the round of 32. And then on the lower side of the Western bracket, you have Kansas and Oregon. I don't like Iowa as much as other people do. I think Oregon beats VCU, then beats Iowa in the round of 32 to play Kansas in the Sweet 16. Kansas has a pretty easy path to the Sweet 16. They'll play Eastern Washington, and then they'll play either USC or Drake. I wasn't convinced with Drake's performance. I think USC is going to roll them, but I think Kansas, out of all the consistently good basketball, like elite basketball schools, I've been the most impressed by Kansas this season. I think they'll go to the Sweet 16, and I think they'll beat Oregon in the Sweet 16 and face Gonzaga in the Elite 8 rounds. Then moving down to the Eastern bracket, Michigan, Florida State, Texas, and Alabama were in my Sweet 16. I like Florida State to beat Michigan. This is a revenge game for Florida State. Again, Michigan knocking out Florida State 2 years ago, the last time the tournament was played. So you always take the revengee in a revenge game if Florida State makes it that far. So if Florida State does make it that far, which they had an extremely disappointing loss to Georgia Tech in the ACC championship final, they turned the ball over like 26 times. This team is better than what they showed in that ACC championship game. they are going to be much, much better. I think that in reality, they're probably going to be able to not only beat UNC Greensboro, but they're also going to be able to beat Georgetown or Colorado, which I have Georgetown upsetting Colorado. This is probably the side of the bracket that I'm least confident about, because I think Colorado could absolutely make a run, but you can't deny how well Georgetown has played recently, especially with how they dominated Creighton and how they won the Big East title. Georgetown is playing great under Patrick Ewing. They're playing together. They're playing for their coach. It's going to be a dangerous team. I just think Florida State is a better team than Georgetown. Georgetown and Florida State, I have them playing each other in the round of 32. Florida State winning that game, then playing Michigan in the Sweet 16 and moving on to the Elite Eight. And at the bottom side of the bracket, I have BYU, Texas, UConn, Alabama in the round of 32. Texas is going to beat BYU, Alabama is going to beat UConn, and Alabama is going to beat Texas in the Sweet 16. I know this is all over the place. This is why I encourage you to bring out your brackets. So we're essentially looking at the same thing. I'm sure if you're listening to this in the podcast form, you're like, wow, these are a lot of teams. How the hell am I ever going to follow this? Bring out a bracket. It's going to help a lot. So all the way back up to the top of the bracket. We're going back to the southern region of the bracket. My Sweet 16, Baylor, Villanova, Arkansas, Virginia Tech, Illinois, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Houston. So in the southern region, we're Baylor, Villanova, Arkansas, Virginia Tech. I really like Virginia Tech. I think they're a slept-on team. I think they are going to make their way into the Sweet 16. They're not only going to upset Florida, who is not a very good basketball team this year. I think they've had their inconsistencies. I think they're also going to beat Ohio State, the number 2 seed. So Virginia Tech is going to play Arkansas in the Sweet 16, going to lose to Arkansas. I feel like the right side of my bracket, which is the South and Midwest regions, I think these are the safer picks. I ended up going really risky on the left side of the bracket and being more safe on the right side of the bracket. So Baylor going to play Villanova in the Sweet 16. Baylor is going to win and play Arkansas in the Elite Eight. On the Midwest side of the bracket, again, Illinois, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Houston. I have Illinois beating Georgia Tech in the round of 32. Oregon State's going to beat Oklahoma. That's a big upset that I'm picking. Oregon State going to beat Oklahoma. Oregon State going to beat Tennessee, then lose to Oklahoma State. Sorry, misread that bracket. Oregon State going to beat Tennessee, lose to Oklahoma State in the round of 32. Oklahoma State going to play Illinois in the Sweet 16, lose to Illinois. Then down on the bottom side of the Midwest bracket, San Diego State going to lose to Syracuse. I like Syracuse. Maybe I'm a little bit ACC biased, but Syracuse looking really good as well. Going to beat San Diego State. West Virginia is going to beat Syracuse, however, move on to the Sweet 16 where they play Houston, lose to Houston. And of course, Houston is going to beat Cleveland State, going to beat Clemson in the round of 32, and beat West Virginia in the Sweet 16. So the Elite Eight, I have Baylor, Arkansas, Illinois, Houston, Alabama, Florida State, Kansas, Gonzaga. And I always feel like very unsure when I have all these top seeds making it further into the tournament, because it's like, man, you're just picking all the top seeds. But realistically, I think the top seeds this season are probably as sure a bet as anything else. So in the Elite Eight, I have Alabama beating Florida State. I have Gonzaga beating Kansas. I've got Baylor beating Arkansas. And I have Illinois beating Houston, which means the Final Four is Gonzaga, Baylor, Alabama, Illinois. Out of those two, I think Gonzaga and Baylor are going to be playing in the national championship, in which Baylor wins the national championship. I'm not sold on Gonzaga. They had a fantastic season, but I am very of the mindset that, there's a reason that there hasn't been an undefeated tournament champion since 1976. The last team to even be remotely close was that Kentucky team from the early 2010s. So there hasn't really, there's been a reason why there hasn't been an undefeated championship, undefeated champion since 1976. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think Gonzaga is going to fall to the pressure in some capacity, and I think Baylor is just a better basketball team at the end of the day. I like Baylor as the national championship winner by a score of 64-62. That is the way that my bracket is set up. I don't know if maybe I should get a link or something to this bracket for you all to understand it a little bit more clearly. I apologize for that being so disoriented, but I really had no other way to kind of explain the picks in the bracket. Let me know who you guys are taking. I am so unsure about this bracket. This was the hardest bracket pick that I've had to make in at least the last 6 or 7 years. Let me know who you guys are taking. Who do you think is going to win the national championship? And with that being said, that is the end of the show today. Thank you so much for listening. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say. Now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.